Hey guys, what's going on? So in today's video, I'm going to be ranking the best armor sets from every single dungeon in Dungeon Quest. So I'm only going to be covering the armor sets you can physically obtain in dungeons to this day. So I'm not going to be including the original boss raid armors, and I'm not going to be including the insane armor sets and the low tier nightmare armor sets. I'm only going to be ranking the high tier armor sets. However, with Winter Outpost and Desert Temple, I'm going to be ranking the armor sets you get on hard difficulty because there is only one armor set on that difficulty, so that's the best armor. So as of me recording this video, the highest dungeon is still Yokai Peak, so I'm only going to go up to the Akuma armor sets. But as time goes on and we get more dungeons, I may update this tier list in a future video. I should also mention that this tier list is solely my opinion, so I'm not going to rank the armor based on just how it looks overall. I'm going to rank it based on how I like it. So opinions definitely will be different from mine. So if you disagree with any of my placements, feel free to put a comment saying what you would change. Now before we get started, I want to make an advertisement for my game Base Defense. Base Defense is a Roblox tower defense game, and recently we just released the Celestial Clash 2024 event. This event brings a new game mode with new limited time rewards that are only available for this event. However, we are bringing a new limited time item that allows you to gain the old event towers that were previously unobtainable. So if you have not played this event or played Base Defense at all, please check out the game in the link in the description below, as any support would help me a lot for the future development of the game. I hope you guys enjoy the new event. Now back to the video. So up first we have the Sandstone sets from the Remastered Desert Temple. Now despite how it actually looks in game, I actually kind of like this set. When I first saw the image for the item, I did think it was going to be a really good item in terms of visuals. Like, I think it would have been hard to tell if this was like a top tier dungeon item, at least from the image. But once you actually put on the armor, there is quite some disappointment. What made the image really stand out was there was a really intense light that shined on the item, which made me think the eyes and the little diamond on the crown was glowing, and that really made it stand out to me, at least. But when you put on the armor, it turns out those don't really glow, they're just there for detail. So that was quite a disappointment. So looking at the three classes for the Sandstone sets, my favorite one is the mage one. I do like the horns, as it kind of resembles the Dracani and Oathsworn mage sets from Gilded Skies. So I really think this would fool me for a top tier item if I didn't know what the higher tier dungeons were. However, because none of the crystals on the armors glow like a neon type material on Roblox, or give any sort of light, I have to rank this set lower, so I would put it in the B tier. I do like this armor set for Desert Temple, especially considering it's the first dungeon in the game, and it got a really nice remaster, and I think it's overall more enjoyable than the Legacy Desert Temple. Up next, we have the Overlord set from the remastered Winter Outpost. Now, I actually really like these sets. These are no doubt the best armor sets we've gotten from Voldex dungeons. I really like the glowing parts on the crystals, although it does slightly resemble Crystalline and maybe some of the Northernland sets. I do really like the armor pieces, especially their coloring. My favorite one is no doubt the Guardian set. It just looks so bulky, and I actually really like that Guardian is really bulky because it really symbolizes their HP. Now my least favorite from the three is the Mage set, surprisingly. It isn't really my cup of tea for the Overlord set, but it is still a really nice looking set nonetheless. So yeah, really nice looking armor sets. So overall, I would put these armor sets in the A tier. Really nice armors for Voldex dungeons. The mage one I think could have been tweaked a little bit, and I think maybe it should have given some light or had some more particle effects, but overall, really nice set nonetheless. Up next, we have the Godly sets from Pirate Island. Now, I actually don't really like the Godly sets. I'm going to be honest right now. I don't really like how they look. But I will give it this. It was VCappy's first Armours, just after Winter Outpost was first released. So, he did definitely try with these sets. However, I just don't really like that they're so simple, being a tier 3 set. It's just not my favorite. If I were to pick a favorite from the Godly sets, I would probably go with Warrior. I do kind of like the glowing red aspect and that it's a little brick-y, if that made any sense. Godly Guardian is probably the most memorable for me since it was the first Godly piece I ever got when I first played. And also, this set is used by the King in King's Castle, so it is pretty memorable as a set. So, not really my cup of tea for tier 3 sets, and because of that, I'm going to put this whole set into C tier. It's not really my favorite tier 3 sets in the game, so I have to put it pretty low. Next, we have the Titan Forge set from King's Castle. Now, one thing I can say with the Titan Forge sets is they all have the same color scheme, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, and I do like that they all have distinctly different designs. Like the Warrior one has more glowing yellow bits than gray bits, Mage has the most gray bits on, and Guardian is kind of a mix between the two. I do like the Titan Forge sets, and I guess there isn't really much else to say. I just like them. It's kind of hard to describe why, but my favorite of the bunch would be the Mage one. I just like the simplicity of it. So overall, I'm going to put the Titan Forge set in B tier. I do kind of like it. My opinion has kind of changed over the years. It was once one of my favorite sets, but it has dropped off as time went on. Up next, we have the Gloria sets from the Underworld. Now, I know a lot of people don't really like the looks for the items in the Underworld and just the Underworld as a whole, but some people do like the Gloria sets, and I did like it at one point, but I realized more and more it's not really the best set in the world. I mean, I guess Warrior's kind of nice, but they aren't really my favorite set just to put on for cosmetic purposes. I mean, like, it wouldn't really matter anyways because their power is so low. But anyways, so if I had to choose a favorite of the three, I would probably go with the Warrior set. I do kind of like that it's blue and glowing. That's kind of the only thing it's got going for it though. Nothing really special about these sets. So I'm putting the Gloria sets into C tier. Not my favorites tier 3 sets. So there you go. Next, we have the Ancestral sets from Samurai Palace. Now, these armor sets are a lot of people's favorite armor sets in the whole game, mostly because a lot of people really like the samurai theme overall. And I will say, these are really nice armors, I can't argue with that. What does kill me about this set, though, is just I was not able to collect them all. Like, in the purple rarity, I've only dropped like 3 Ancestral pieces. Like, that, I don't know what's up with my luck on that, but that's just something that really bothered me about it for some reason. But I know I can't really judge it based on that, so. Now, I do like that the armor sets each have a different symbol on the back of the chest piece, and I do like the different designs between the 3 classes, and I think this is kind of where it started, where Mage, Warrior, and Guardian had different colors. And I do like that Guardian was blue, Warrior is red, and Mage is purple. I do really like that. Now, my favorite armor out of the bunch is Ancestral Mage, no doubt, but Warrior isn't that bad either. Guardian I do like as well, but I will probably put it at the least of the 3 Ancestral pieces. So, pretty nice looking set overall. I would put this whole armor set in the A tier, but probably higher than the Winterlord set, in fact. I do really like these sets. It is borderline S tier, but I would still put this in A tier since there are a few sets that I think look better than these sets overall. Next, we have the Overlord set from the Canals. Now, I remember seeing this a lot back then when Dungeon Quest was still quite new. The Overlord set wasn't really people's favorites, and I can see kind of why. Because the Overlord sets are not really a type of armor, if that makes any sense. Like, these look more like suits rather than just armor pieces, which I'm not sure if it's the point and all. But they're just not my favorite sets as well. So nothing really else left to say about them. I'm going to put them in C tier. I would still put them above the Gloria sets because I kind of like the detail on some of them. But yeah, not my favorite set overall. I do think Rogue is a better set in the Canals than Overlords and Salvaged. Up next is the Mythical sets from Ghastly Harbour. Now, you guys are probably going to disagree with me here, but I actually really like the Mythical sets, and I think they're the best sets up until this point in Dungeon Quest. Like, I really love that the spikes are glowing, and I really like the color scheme for each of the Mythical sets, and even the helmets are really nice. If I were to pick a least favorite though, I would easily have to go with Guardian, but it still isn't that bad either. What I would probably change about it is its color scheme, since I don't like that the glowing bits are white instead of like a really deep blue. Warrior and Mage are fine as they are though, I wouldn't change a thing about them. So for the Mythical sets overall, I'm going to put them in the S tier. It will probably be like a pretty low S tier since there are quite a lot of armors that I thought are better than Mythical overall nowadays. But for the time, really nice sets. Next, we have the Warforged sets from Steampunk Sewers. Now, these sets, they do work as a Steampunk armor set, but you guys know my opinion from me ranking all the dungeons in Dungeon Quest. And if you don't know that, the Steampunk Sewers dungeon isn't really my favorite dungeon because of theming, and the Steampunk armors, or the Warforged armors, aren't an exception. I don't really like the hoses on the warrior armor, and there is a famous meme with the warrior set being considered furnace armor. I don't really know where it started, but it does resemble a furnace, kinda, which is kinda funny. The mage set, it was confirmed that the hose on the shoulder was supposed to be connected to the mask, but because of animation issues, they cut it out. Now I can't understand why, but that does drop a little bit of points from the armor set overall. If I were to pick a favorite, it would easily be the warrior set, but it probably wouldn't be that high compared to the other sets. So overall, Warforged set, not really my favorite. I'm putting it in low C tier. Almost put it in D tier, but I think there's some sets that are worse than the Warforged sets overall. Now we have the Alien sets from Orbital Outpost. Now I did think this set was cool when I first saw it in Orbital Outpost release, but once time started passing, I kind of started slowly disliking this set. It just looks kind of weird, and I know that's the point because it's alien, but that still doesn't really change my opinion on it. It does have a different color scheme throughout each class, but believe it or not, all the helmets actually have exactly the same design. The only difference with Mage having a cube on top of its head, but that's the only change about it. Warrior and Guardian are basically a copy and paste with different color schemes and rotated it in a different way. Mage is a copy and paste of Warrior, just with different color scheme and a cube on top. And even the details on the armor are actually the same. If you take off the shoulder pads, the gauntlets on Warrior, and the shoulder pads on Guardian, they all actually have the exact same design. Like, I don't know if anybody caught this, but that's just something I noticed. So, pretty lazy with this set and not really my favorite set. I'm putting this in the D tier. Next, we have the Lava King set from Volcanic Chambers. Now this set is very memorable for me because it was when I was getting back into Dungeon Quests when Volcanic Chambers was still new. And a lot of people really didn't like that this dungeon was a lot harder than any other dungeon in Dungeon Quest. And I did think that at first, but once I started soloing it and I posted that video on Volcanic Chambers with Orbital Outpost gear for the first time, I started to really get into this dungeon, especially when BCAFE had its 1 billion visits events, where this dungeon dropped extra item. So, very memorable sets, and I actually do kind of like it overall. It's very magma themed, which really suits the Volcanic Chambers dungeon overall. So, really well done on it. If there was one thing I would criticize about these armor sets, though, is the huge shoulder pads. Like, the shoulder pads are crazy big in this dungeon. And I'm not sure where that came from, but that's just something I noticed, and I think BCAFE should have made these shoulder pads smaller. Overall, though, still a pretty good set, and I would say the Mage one is the best out of the bunch, and I do like Warrior as well, and Guardian I don't really like that much. So overall, pretty nice set, and I'll put this in the B tier. Next, we have the Triton sets from Aquatic Temple. Now, Triton Mage was teased a lot in the sneak peeks while Aquatic Temple was in the works, and Triton Warrior was shown before it was released. And overall, I really like the Triton sets actually. I like that there's so much glowing on it, and it really stands out for me. Especially the Warrior set. I really like the shade of blue they went for the neon parts, or the glowing parts on it. What some of you probably don't realize though is the base shape for the Triton sets are actually the same as the Riptide set helmets. Like, if you take a look under the little horn on the front, you can actually notice that the shape of the inside for Triton Mage is the same as Riptide Mage, and the general shape for Triton Warrior is the same as Riptide Warrior, and Guardian is very close to Riptide Mage, just with some small changes, like the horns and the mask, as well as the color scheme. So, now that you think about it, it is a little bit lazy, but I don't think you would really notice that in game, and I didn't even notice that at first, so I can't deduct points for that. So overall, I will put the Triton sets in S tier. Really nice looking sets, and Warrior and Mage are really nice looking. Okay, just a few more to go. Just gotta go through 4 more dungeons. Losing my voice here, but let's continue. So up next we have the Eldenbark sets from Enchanted Forest. So for a long time now, out of the recent dungeons, Enchanted Forest seems to be everybody's favorite looking dungeon, including the armor sets. And I do like Enchanted Forest. I do think it's one of the better looking dungeons. However, it's not my favorite dungeon overall. The Eldenbark sets look really nice. However, I did think at first it resembled too close to Triton. And it still kind of does in a way, just recolored differently, but it's at least different enough so that you can really tell it apart from the Triton sets. For whatever reason though, the Eldenbark Warrior set really reminded me of a Yeti based on the mask, but that didn't really bother me too much, and I thought it was actually kind of funny. And I do like the detail that DN Sketchbook put into the Eldenbark sets, and whoever modeled these armors. I do really like the Eldenbark sets. I like the tree barks they have, I like the little crystals that hang off it, and I do like a lot of the glowing parts on the armor pieces. Really nice stuff. So I'm going to put the Eldenbark sets in the A tier. It's still not quite at my favorite compared to the Triton sets, but still really nice set nonetheless. Next we have the Valhalla sets from Northern Lands. Now when I first released my Northern Lands video, I actually didn't like the Valhalla sets that much, and I thought Mage was the only good one. And believe it or not, my opinion still stands actually, that the Valhalla sets are not that good actually. Valhalla's Mage is still easily the best armor set we have in Northern Lands. I still like how it looks overall. I like the kind of runes it has on it. And I do like the antlers on the Mage helmet. Valhalla Warrior, however, is still easily the worst of the 3 Valhalla sets. Although my opinion has changed over time, I actually don't think this is the worst looking set in Northern Lands. It does still somewhat resemble a king. Like, I would still think this is a king's castle armor. And I do respect that the helmet was at least a little bit bigger. I still would have preferred if the helmet was much closer to its shape in the sketchbook. Like, I think the proportions in the concept art is better than how it is now. I don't really care that the color scheme is yellow instead of blue, but that's just something that bothered me about it. So Valhalla sets, the only thing really carrying it is Mage. Guardian I do think is okay, although it kind of resembles Steampunk a little bit, but nothing really else to say about these sets. Next we have the Gildenscale sets from Gilded Skies. Now the Gildenscale sets is a huge step up from the Valhalla sets and probably any other sets in Dungeon Quest. I really love how these sets look. I like how the scales they have, I like the spikes, and I do like the wings as well. Like the wings for the Gildenscale sets is what tops it off for me. I love the looks of these sets and the golden plating they have. Especially for Gildenscale Warrior. Like, I thought Mage would have been my favorite, but as time went on, I actually thought Warrior was the best looking Gildenscale set out of the bunch. Even Guardian is pretty good. Like, it's probably my favorite out of any Guardian set in the whole game. Really nice looking set overall. Now, one thing I do have to criticize is the chest piece. I do think is a little too big, if that makes any sense. Like, you'll probably notice that the chest piece sticks out a lot more than any other set, and that is something that bothered me at first, but as time went on I kind of accepted it, so that is something I do have to note about it. Overall though, still a really nice set and probably my favorite armor set in this whole game, so easily S tier for me. Last up we have the Akuma sets from Yokai Peak. I actually don't like the Akuma sets. You guys probably already know from my review of Yokai Peak as a whole. Akuma is not really my favorite set. I don't really like how it looks overall. I don't like the general Oni theme, and I especially don't like that the teeth are so big and the horns are like, it's just not my favorite set. And the hair, I don't really like that it's so spiky as well. Like, there was a meme between my friend group where the Warrior set was considered the Ganondorf set from The Legend of Zelda, and I thought it was kind of funny, but that's the only thing I really know the Akuma sets for. So, Akuma sets, I'm going to put it in the D tier. Not really a good set, in my opinion. So that's it. That's all the current tier 3 armors in Dungeon Quest. Which ones do you agree with? Do you agree that Akuma is the worst looking tier 3 armor set? Please let me know in the comments below. And that's going to be it for this video. If you guys like this video, please drop a like and subscribe to my channel for more content like this. Thanks for watching and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.